Softness of the New Balance 1080, light and nimble on the foot, a little bit like the New Balance Rebel V4. It's got the geometry of the Neo Vista and it's got the bounce of the Nike Invincible. So testing's complete and the scores are in, and this is the full review of the New Balance BALOS. But before we get into it, a big shout out to my #1 running store, the Running Company at Geelong. I've got a link to their website in the description. Make sure you go check out that and check out all their running gear. And also guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And with the specs, so this one is certainly a neutral road running shoe. So coming in at Australia at a pretty hexy price here, so $300, $200 you're going to pay in the US. Now in the weight, not too bad here, 260 grams or 9.2 ounces in your men's size 9. Now in the stack height, some wacky sort of stats here because it looks a bit different than what the stats say. So we got 33 in the rear, 27 in the front. That's going to give us a 6mm drop, but I suspect the stack height is actually a little bit taller there in the middle of the shoe, and that's just because the geometry here is a little bit wacky. Now for the scores, now $300, I don't like shoes being around that price point. However, I think this one has got a little bit of value in it because it is such a unique shoe, 7 out of 10. And for the weight, 9.2 ounces or 260 grams, it actually doesn't feel that heavy on the foot. It actually feels quite light and nimble, 8 out of 10. And in the upper side, the material that they're using here is a creel mesh. Now this creel mesh, it's a bit of a double layer what they've got going on here, but it's very thick, very robust. So it feels like it's going to really last the test of time. Breathability is pretty good in it though. Really solid heel counter at the back, just a really solid as a tank, like we've got a really hard cap there. We've got a plush, puffy pillow that's going to rest along the Achilles there. And then the rest of the padding though, probably about on the medium side. We don't have any padding on the tongue, but it is a stretch knit tongue. One of the best features on the upper, and it's really low and secure. So it does a great job of locking the foot down on top of this shoe. Saying that though, you barely even have to use these laces because the stretch knit tongue is so good. Obviously the lockdown, excellent. I've had no issues with it. Now in the fit, it is a weird fit, just like I said in the first impressions review. So in the length, it would be true to size. However, because this shoe has got such low volume in the toe box, and I haven't seen a wide version available, I went half size up just to give me some extra room in the toe box. And even half size up, it still feels quite low, the volume in the toe box. The width is okay, but yeah, it's just so low. Sort of this, all this sort of bunching on top here, this bunching of that mesh just sort of sits on top of the toes, which can get a little bit annoying. So it's probably a little bit long coming a half size up, but it actually doesn't affect the ride at all. So I don't mind it being a little long. Now scores wise in the upper, my only real issue with it is just that weird fit. So just how low that volume is in the toe box. It's not going to agree with anyone. I think it's probably limited to how many people it's going to suit just because of the upper. 7 out of 10. And in the outsole, so hardly any rubber on the bottom of the shoe. The majority of outsole touching the ground here is actually ground contact EVA. And that's all this off green color as you can see there. And they've got this unique little pod design you're probably going to be familiar with, or you might have seen that in the More V5. But not an overly aggressive tread pattern, but it's still quite effective. Now they do have a little bit of rubber on the bottom of the shoe. That's back here in the heel and also where you toe off here. And luckily for me, that's where I do the most of my wear on the shoes. The big issues here with the outsole here is the durability of that ground contact EVA. It does scuff up and shows pretty much a lot of signs of wear quite quickly. I don't think it's going to affect performance too much, but it is going to get ground down quite quickly. Also the rubber on the bottom of this shoe as well, that is also getting ground down quite quickly. But again, I'm not too concerned about the durability of this shoe, but just be wary, you're not going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Ks out of this outsole because it's just going to wear flat. In the grip though, totally happy with it. In the scores, I like a really soft outsole, 8.5 out of 10. And in the midsole, so you might read Fresh Foam X on the side of the shoe there. However, this has got some PEEB or some super foam blended in it, and a bit of an experiment to see what would happen with this Fresh Foam X. And I can tell you what, The results are absolutely amazing. Absolutely love how this foam feels, but I'll go on to that shortly. So they've just got a big slab of that foam. There's no plate in this shoe, and this shoe's pretty flexible, as you can see there. So it's certainly left and right, so certainly only for neutral runners here, because it's a very natural sort of feeling shoe on the foot, except for when it comes for the geometry, because the geometry is fairly wacky. The geometry reminds me of what you would find in the Mizuno Neo Vista, so that smooth speed assist geometry in the Mizuno shoes, where the majority of the meat of the shoe or the foam is sort of further back in the shoe, so you don't have an you don't have a late rocker up near the toes. It feels like it's back way back towards the middle of the shoe, and they've also got this a bit of an aggressive rear foot rocker or a heel bevel as well. So it really forces you to really land on the meaty part of the midsole, and then there's like a big tilt forward, which I really, really like. And in the ride, so the first word that is coming to mind is bounce. So a lot of other companies out there claim that their shoes have got lots of bounce, but this to me is the bounciest shoe currently on the market. So it is super soft as well, but it has got its energetic softness. So you do sink right into it, but the energy return, yeah, it's just got lots of energy, lots of pop. It's lots of fun as well. So you just feel like you're bouncing on little trampolines as you roll down the road. And as I mentioned before, this rocker, very similar to the Neo Vista. So it really does force you to land on the midfoot, and then you just roll forward onto that sort of big, early, aggressive rocker, and you're always feeling like you just tilt. You always feel like you're hitting the meat of the midsole, where most of the midsole is. You sink down, you just get all this squish, and then as you get onto that early rocker, you just feel all this pop and all this bounce as you roll through your foot strike. It really is such an enjoyable ride. Now, what it is not, it's probably not the most overly stable shoe. As I said, it feels quite nimble and quite natural on the foot. And with being so soft, you would think that it lacks a bit of efficiency. So for me, I think that efficiency is counteracted by just the geometry and how much energy return and how much bounce the shoe has got. So it's got a good balance there where it's not too soft and squishy, that it doesn't feel like you're digging yourself out of sand. There's just so much bounce, so much rocker, that it just allows those legs to tick over. And for the scores, well, I do think this is the most enjoyable shoe to run in that's currently on the market. It's my favorite ride of the year, and I think it's going to be my highest score, 9.5 out of 10. So you've got a really versatile shoe here, absolutely amazing for your easy days, your recovery days. This really soft, bouncy ride is just going to let you tick the legs over effortlessly, take all the pounding out of the pavement. Can also handle the pace as well, so if you want to hit some tempo workouts in it, great for your fartleks when you've got some pace changes. I really love this for the long run, so it's great for motivation on the long run. Even when the runs are getting really long, this midsole just keeps you bouncing along later in those runs. What it probably does lack is that really top end speed, so it's not a really responsive foam. So if you want to run up around that 5K pace, probably lacks a bit of that. So some other options out there if you are considering this shoe. So for me, there's only one shoe that comes close to this shoe, and that is the Mizuno Neo Vista. So same type of softness, same type of bounce, same type of geometry. But that one, you're going to get a very different, probably a little bit more accommodating upper than this one. So from my experience, and if I had to describe this shoe, I'd say it's got the softness of the New Balance 1080, light and nimble on the foot, a little bit like the Rebel V4, the geometry of the Neo Vista, and the bounce like a Nike Invincible. So it's the most enjoyable ride on the market for a training shoe. So not a race shoe, for a training shoe. So absolutely love this ride. It is amazing. Now what they just need to fix up, they just need to refine this upper, make it a little bit more accommodating so it works for more people. If they do that, I think they're going to have an absolutely dangerous shoe on their hands. It's going to be the shoe of the year for sure. I don't know if they're going to do a number 2 of this version, because I think it was a bit of an experiment with what would happen with the foam, but hopefully they do create a new version, because it's going to be an absolute banger. So in the scores there, as you can see, pretty good score. It's cracked into the 40s, just let down there a little bit by the price and also by the upper. But as I said, this ride is absolutely amazing. It's a buy from me. So anyway, guys, that is it. Have you got any questions for me about my time in the Balos? Just throw it in the comments below. And if you want to know how else it compares to anything else, again, just ask me in the comments. Thank you for watching. Make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.